Hi guys, get ready to dive into something deeper than appearances, something that speaks not to the eyes, but to the soul. Have you ever met someone whose presence lingers even in silence? A woman who doesn't need to prove anything, yet somehow you feel drawn to her energy, her calm, her quiet strength. Today on Sidepth, we're exploring what makes emotionally mature women so irresistibly magnetic, and it has nothing to do with looks. According to Carl Jung, real attraction starts within. It's born from inner wholeness, from a woman who has embraced both her light and her shadow, and no longer seeks approval to feel complete. In this video, you'll discover 6 powerful habits that define emotionally mature women. Habits that reveal a deep psychological and spiritual evolution. These aren't just behaviors, they're the natural expression of a soul that has done the work, faced the mirror, and chosen to grow. So, if you've ever felt there's more to connection than surface-level charm, you're right. These women draw others in not with performance but with presence. And as you listen, let this be a gentle reminder. True beauty isn't loud. It's quiet, rooted, and unforgettable. If you've made it this far, then you already sense it. That quiet truth beneath the noise. And now we begin the real journey. The first habit of an emotionally mature woman is this: she makes peace with her emotions. She does not apologize for her sadness, nor does she wear a mask over her fear. She allows herself to feel, fully, gently, without judgment. She doesn't dramatize her pain, but she also doesn't silence it to appear strong. She knows that strength isn't found in resistance, but in surrendering to what is. Picture her sitting in stillness after a long day, her eyes tired but soft. Maybe she's holding grief, not trying to escape it, not trying to explain it, just holding it like a quiet guest she's learned to welcome. There's a kind of wisdom in that. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, those hidden, repressed parts of ourselves that we often fear. But he also taught that healing begins when we bring those shadows into the light. This woman doesn't run from her inner darkness. She turns toward it with compassion. She doesn't say, "I'm fine," when she's not. She simply breathes and says, "This hurts, and that's okay." And in doing so, she gives others silent permission to be real too. Ask yourself this: do you allow your emotions to move through you, or do you try to control them? Do you let yourself cry without shame? Sit with fear without fixing it? Or are you still waiting to feel safe before you let yourself feel at all? Emotional maturity begins here, in the raw, unfiltered presence with what lives inside you. And then there is the second habit, one that's subtle but incredibly powerful. She sets boundaries quietly, without guilt, without over-explaining. A woman who knows herself doesn't need to justify her no. She doesn't need to wrap her silence in 1,000 reasons or cushion her refusal in apologies. Her energy speaks clearly, even when her words are few. Imagine a moment. Someone asks her for a favor she cannot give, not because she's unkind, but because it would cost her peace. She looks them in the eyes, smiles gently, and says, "I can't do that." No excuses, no guilt, just clarity. And here's what makes it magnetic. She doesn't seek validation for protecting her space. She isn't harsh, but she's firm. There is no tension, just presence. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the journey to become whole, requires that we draw a line between who we truly are and what the world expects us to be. When a woman sets boundaries, she's not pushing others away. She's defining the sacred ground of her own being. And that quiet firmness, that inner authority, it's deeply attractive, not because it pleases others, but because it's real. Boundaries aren't walls, they're invitations for authentic connection. Ask yourself this: when you say no, do you feel the need to explain yourself? Do you fear being misunderstood more than you fear self-abandonment? And what if, just for today, you chose clarity over comfort? The emotionally mature woman doesn't defend her limits, she honors them. And in doing so, she teaches others how to love her without crossing her. Now the third habit, and perhaps the most liberating of all, she does not seek to prove herself in relationships. She no longer performs, she no longer bends to be chosen. She has stopped chasing love like it's a finish line, stopped measuring her worth by someone else's ability to see it. If a connection grows, she nurtures it with tenderness, but if it fades, she lets it go with grace. Picture this: a relationship that once held promise begins to feel tight, limiting, small, and instead of begging for change or pretending it still fits, she quietly steps away. Not because she stopped caring, but because she started listening to herself. She knows that when love no longer allows her to expand, it's no longer love, it's a cage. Carl Jung taught that our deepest journey is toward psychological wholeness, toward becoming a self that no longer depends on external affirmation. For this woman, love is a mirror, not a reward. She doesn't need to be praised to feel seen or needed to feel valuable. She is already enough. And her detachment? It isn't coldness, it's clarity. A sacred knowing that she is not here to audition for anyone's affection. Ask yourself gently, are you loving from fullness or from fear? Are you waiting for someone to choose you, or are you already choosing yourself? Would you still feel worthy if the person you wanted walked away? These are not easy questions, but they are the ones that lead us home. Because when a woman no longer needs love to complete her, she becomes the kind of soul others search for, but rarely find. The fourth habit of an emotionally mature woman is her ability to embrace solitude without fear. She doesn't fill the silence with distractions or chase noise to avoid the quiet inside her. She sits with herself, not as someone waiting to be rescued, but as someone who has already made peace with her own presence. Imagine her at home on a quiet evening, curled up with a book, music playing softly, the air still. There is no need for company to validate her existence, no craving to escape the stillness. She is not lonely, she is simply alone. And in that aloneness, she is whole. Carl Jung spoke deeply of the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies within every psyche. For the emotionally mature woman, her animus is no longer projected outward onto men she hopes will complete her. Instead, she has integrated it within herself. She has developed inner strength, logic, structure, and direction, qualities traditionally associated with the masculine. Without losing her softness, her solitude becomes a sacred space, not a prison. Ask yourself, when was the last time you were truly alone without feeling the need to be somewhere else, with someone else? Can you enjoy your own company in stillness? Or do you reach for your phone the moment silence arrives? Maturity doesn't reject connection, but it knows that without being rooted in yourself, connection becomes dependency, not intimacy. And so she chooses solitude, not as a rejection of others, but as a devotion to her inner life. The fifth habit is her ability to speak with honesty, but never with cruelty. An emotionally mature woman has nothing to prove. Her truth is not a weapon. It's a mirror held with care. She speaks clearly, openly, but also with an awareness of how her words land. There is no harshness in her tone, no desire to wound, even when what she says might be hard to hear. Imagine her with a partner, someone she cares for deeply. She notices something that hurts, something that doesn't feel right. And instead of withdrawing in silence or exploding in accusation, she takes a breath and says it simply, "This is how I feel. This is what I need." Her voice is steady, her heart is open, and her intention is not to control or shame, but to be seen. Jung taught us that shadow integration brings wisdom. When we meet our own pain with compassion, we gain the ability to hold others with that same grace. This woman has looked at her own reflection long enough to understand that truth without empathy is violence. So she chooses her words with care, not to be liked, but to be real, and to be kind. Ask yourself, can you speak your truth without hardening your heart? Can you express what hurts without turning it into blame? Are your words bridges or are they walls? Emotional maturity gives us language that heals while it reveals. And in her honesty, there is light, not because it's easy to hear, but because it's spoken with love. And finally, the sixth habit. She does not attach, she chooses. This may be the most misunderstood aspect of emotional maturity, but also the most freeing. She can love deeply, passionately, vulnerably, but she does not cling. She doesn't confuse love with possession or security. She knows that real love is not about binding another to her expectations, but about witnessing their freedom while standing fully in her own. Picture her loving someone with all her heart, but never needing them to change, to meet her image of love. She doesn't ask for constant reassurance, nor does she make her self-worth conditional on how much she is needed. Her love is not a plea, it's a gift, And if it must end, she lets it go, not because she stopped caring, but because she never tried to own it. Carl Jung's concept of individuation reminds us that to become whole, we must separate from the illusion that another person will complete us. This woman understands that. She may walk beside someone, share her soul with them, dream with them, but she will not lose herself to keep them close. Her love is fierce, but it is free. Ask yourself, are you choosing love from a place of fullness or attaching out of fear? Can you love someone and still let them be who they are, even if that means walking away? Is your connection based on freedom or on control? To choose someone again and again, without needing them to fill your emptiness, that is love at its highest form. And the emotionally mature woman, she doesn't bind, she invites. She doesn't beg, she trusts. And in that trust, she becomes a space where love can breathe. In the end, what makes a woman unforgettable has little to do with how loud her laughter is, how perfect her timing, or how many eyes turn when she enters the room. What stays with us, what truly lingers, is something far quieter, the way she holds herself when no one is watching, the way she meets pain without shrinking, how she speaks without needing to convince, and how she walks away without bitterness when love no longer serves her growth. Her presence feels different because it is different. It's built not on performance but on peace, a peace she's earned by turning inward again and again until her own silence no longer frightens her. There's a softness in her strength and a clarity in her stillness. She isn't trying to be captivating. She simply is, because her energy is free from the hunger of proving. And that, perhaps, is the rarest kind of magnetism. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And she has awakened, not all at once and not without scars, but slowly, deliberately, through the quiet choices that most never see. She no longer fills the void with noise. She feels. She sets boundaries without raising her voice. She lets go without needing to be the one remembered. Her love doesn't grasp, it offers. And her truth doesn't wound, it reveals. This is the kind of beauty you don't always notice in the beginning. But over time you realize it's the only kind that ever really stays. So if you found a part of yourself in her story, or felt something stir as her habits mirrored your own quiet knowing, then maybe you're already walking the same path. And if so, then perhaps you've landed in the right place, not just to learn, but to remember who you are beneath the noise. If this resonated with you, if something in it felt like coming home, then feel free to stay. Subscribe if you'd like to explore more of these quiet truths, these deeper layers of the self. No pressure, just an open invitation. Because the beauty that can't be seen is often the kind that's carved into memory, the kind that doesn't fade. And maybe, just maybe, this is where your deeper journey begins.